Alright, so this is your web study guide. We're going to start with chapter 5. We're going to look at some running videotape. Okay, so we're going to click on chapter 5. And we're going to look at the video in lab activity 5.1. And over on the left here, you can see that there are some options under lab activity 5.1. You've got guided video, which we'll talk a little bit more. I'll try and remember to go over that with you when we're actually looking at the other assessment tool that is in the textbook. All right, today we're going to look at some of the non-guided video for runners. Come on. I'm giving them runners. Instructions on what to run the video, people. Non-guided runners. Why is it doing that? Oh, because I'm not reading properly. Go to the next slide. Duh. Alright, we actually want, okay, so then you can scroll down the side here, and I want to show you runner number 4 to begin with, and I want to make this bigger. So we're going to use the MSU chart to start, and then we'll compare it to what we see using the TGMD. All right, so we click on that, we can make it bigger, and we have this little chap who's been told to run down the gym. And you can click on this replay arrow. It's unfortunate that they don't just have it on continual replay. You have to keep remembering to click, but they do at least have a slow-mo version and a regular speed version. So when you are teaching, it's really useful to have at least one camera, preferably 2 or 3, so that you get more than one angle. And it's really good if you can get software that allows you to advance frame by frame. That makes life a lot easier. Otherwise you have to have a quick finger to try to catch the video, which I don't. Said. So let's start with our MSU chart, and okay, he's got his tongue sticking out. That's not a characteristic though, so that's not helpful. All right, let's see. So I would say not stage 1, because his arms are down kind of shoulder and below. And in stage 1, the hands tend to be up high, around head height or higher. So I'm thinking not stage 1. So then
this would be stage 2, right?
I think he looks quite stage 2-ish. On here, are his arms swinging in opposition deliberately? That's something you have to decide, right? I don't think they are. I don't think they're low enough to be stage 3, his arms. And I also don't think the fact that they're moving slightly backwards and forwards is a deliberate attempt. I think it's just the mechanics of his legs moving is making his body and his arms swing a little bit.
Yeah, he's doing like this little hop thing.
Yeah. Right? So, vertical component, there is still quite a lot of up and down and not a great deal of forward. So I think I would, if I was assessing this, I would put him in stage 2. Yeah. So Ibn thinks stage 2. Anybody else got a different? Idea there? Right. So remember that the MSU is a total body approach to assessment. It's very user-friendly. All right. I can decide that he's in stage 2. I can look at the characteristics for stage 3, and I can phrase my cueing and my feedback to try to move this little boy up to stage 3. Remember that jumping from stage 2 to stage 4 isn't going to happen, right? According to the research, according to all my experience, that doesn't happen. So we have to make sure that we are planning for him to pass through stage 3 into stage 4. All right? So I can use this to think about, okay, how am I going to set up some running practice to try to get him to look more like stage 3. All right? Now, on the MSU chart, that we don't have a score, right? It doesn't have any normative tables. So really, I'm going to use this for my own use, right? So that I can say, okay, he's stage 2, this is what I need to get him to stage 3, and maybe if I do enough practice with him, maybe in a couple of weeks, right? Depending on him, maybe in a couple of weeks he could look a little bit more like he's transitioning from stage 3 towards stage 4. Okay? So that's how we would use this. It's important to be able to identify where they are so that I can be appropriate in the kinds of feedback and cueing and setups that lesson plans that I come up with for them, right? Because if I try to push them too fast and give them a lesson plan based on stage 4, everyone's going to get a bit frustrated. And it's really crucial when we're doing movement skills with people that we set up the environment to provide a level of success for them, all right? It's got to be some challenge, but there has to be some success, because failing over and over and over again for the majority of the population is very demotivating, right? So those of you that are competitive athletes, it's sometimes difficult to understand that mindset, all right? Because think about, you know, if you play badly one time, right? It's not fun to play badly, okay? But that, if you're very competitive, not playing well on one occasion motivates you to try even harder the next time, right? And that's what makes you not normal, not typical, right? So most of the people taking HPE content classes fit in a small little percentage of the population. You like to move, you choose to move at every opportunity, right? You enjoy it, and when it doesn't go well, that makes you want to try again, not give up and go away, right? The typical population don't think that way, right? It's like, okay, I've done this 3 times and I've flunked it 3 times, I'm just going to go try something else that I'm better at, right? That will be fun, okay? All right, so this time use your TGMD chart, all right? And we're going to look at the locomotor subset for running. It's the first skill. And this time we're going to watch him and we're going to look at the performance criteria that's in column 4. All right? And remember, for TGMD, what I'm looking for is a yes or no answer to the criteria. All right? And if it's a no, it scores 0. If it's a yes, it scores 1. Okay? So, yes?
When I go to my TGMD, it only shows a rubric.
No, I have that sheet up. Let me have a look at the...
You gotta go to lab notes first.
Thank you.
Oops, okay. Is it course packet or lecture notes?
Course packet.
The course packet.
Okay. All right, appreciate it.
Okay, so remember, we have a big difference between the MSU and the TGMD chart, because the TGMD chart, we're going to give a score for each skill, and then we have a set of normative tables by age and by sex if we're looking at ball skills. They don't call them ball skills, you said they're ball skills. Because girls are so far behind developmentally on ball skills compared to boys. So we have a boys and a girls normative set for that subset. But for locomotor, boys and girls are pretty equal. Sometimes girls are even better. So we only have one normative table divided by age for the locomotor subset. Right. So criteria number 1 says arms move in opposition to legs with elbows bent. So,
I would think so.
well, I don't think so either. I think that's a no. If I was scoring it, I would say no. Right? Yes, there's some movement in the arms, but it's not an arm swing. In my view, it's just because he's moving around, his arms are moving. Right? So I think that's a no. So that would score 0 for that criteria. You would give him another attempt at it and watch it again and see if it looks the same. You give him another 0, and the total score for criteria 1 would be 0. Right? Okay, criteria 2, brief period where both feet are off the surface. It's going to be tricky to tell on the real time. So what we're looking for here is there a flight phase? Is there a point in time where his whole body is off the floor? Okay,
I
that's...
don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say overall, when I'm scoring any kind of assessments with movement, my modus operandi tends to be to score quite hard most of the time. Not always. There are times when I'm trying to motivate someone, and so I might score them up rather than down, if there's some question mark over it. But most of the time I tend to go down, and my reason for that is that I think it's better that we know the worst case scenario of the child's movement pattern so that we can work to improve it, than we think it's a little bit better than it is, and then we try to push them to the next level before they're ready for it. All right? So that's my personal approach to it. As you get more experience, one of the important things is that you make some decisions about how you are going to do assessment, and then you have to stay consistent, right? That's crucial. You can't say for one child, oh, I would do this, and then for another child, right? You've got to be consistent as best you can, okay? So I would say no, but let me show you something, if I can catch it. No, it was too late there. Okay, there's definitely no flight phase when he's pushing off that left foot. Look, ooh, I missed it. Ah! God, my reactions are just too slow. Let's try again. No, missed it again. Ah, there's no way. Let me see if I can pull it. Maybe I can pull it back this way.
So even if it's for like a very brief second, like very slight, then you can put yes.
So this is what I'm seeing with this little boy. When he pushes off his left foot, right, here's a left-footed step, and his right foot hits the ground before he's finished pushing off his left foot. So there is no flight phase there, right? But I believe I saw, can I get it? Oh, there it is. There, right? That's why even when you were saying that the first time you watched the film that he did a funny kind of hop thing in the middle, this is what you were seeing, right? So when he pushes off his right foot, we have a fraction of air time, but not on the left foot. And that's what gave that funny little blip in the motor pattern. So that's really interesting. I would still score him no, because I'm not seeing it consistently on both feet. Again, as I said, I tend to go down rather than up. So what's interesting here is that for some reason or other, at this point in his development, his right leg is a little bit stronger than his left leg, right? So when he's pushing off his right leg, he's got enough strength to get his body off the ground, but when he's pushing off his left leg, it's not quite at the same level, and we're not getting the flight phase with the left leg. So if I was the parent or the teacher there, then I would do some work on single leg work, right? And try to catch the left leg up so that I see a consistent flight phase with both feet. Right? But when even as adults, right, you know that when you go and train, right, one side is stronger than the other, one side is more flexible than the other. We're never completely equal, even if we work at trying to be completely equal, right? So it's just interesting that you can pick it up on something like this with this child. Does everybody see what I'm pointing out there?
Yes.
Now, the next characteristic criteria is a good indication of why you need preferably 2 cameras or 3, right? Because in order to identify the next criteria, you have to be standing either in front or behind the individual. So if you're not scoring it by watching it, and that's hard. I mean, I know people who can do that, but it's really difficult to score it real time. It's so much easier to video it and then sit on your computer and do the scoring where you can slow it down or play it again, right? So this, as I said, this is a case in point. For criteria 1 and 2, I need to be side on to the individual to score yes or no, right? Criteria 3, we're looking at the foot placement, so what they want to know, and we haven't done this in class yet, but you'll see, well, we've done it on the MSU chart a little bit. Remember that stage 1 of running, the feet are really wide. So what they want to see on criteria 3 is where is the individual with regard to their base of support? Do they still need their feet really wide, or are their feet under their hips? Right? So, narrow foot placement, part 1, landing on heel or toe, not flat-footed. So, if we go back to our chapter, then it so happens that they had a camera, or they made him, no, they must have made him run again away from the wall. Would have been better to have had 2 cameras. So we have some film of him running with the camera not quite in front of him, but they probably didn't want him to run into the camera. Okay? So let's see what is happening with his feet. Narrow. Well, they're not way outside his hips. That right leg is a little bit wider than the left leg. But I think that is flat-footed. I don't see any heel strike or toe strike. Does anybody see heel or toe strike?
It kind of looks like he's making contact with his heel first.
You do? Which foot? With both feet? They cut the bottom of the film off. It's a bit frustrating.
Right there, yeah.
Okay, I think
Yeah,
you're
it goes from
more,
like heel to flat foot.
okay, you're more generous than me, I think. Yeah, I think I would say flat-footed. Tricky one. So, I think it's complicated by having two things that you're scoring on one criteria, right? So I think that complicates the situation a little bit. But they've tried to keep the assessment tool quite concise so that it doesn't take an hour to run the assessment. But I think that narrow foot placement and heel toe might be two different criteria. However, we've got one criteria to answer. So when you say something, if you could let me know who's speaking, because I can't see you, then I can talk to you rather than whoever. So seems like one or two of you think that he's hitting heel first. So you might give him a yes, right? On criteria 3, I would give him a no. So he's not doing too well on my scoring sheet. Any comments or questions there? And then for the fourth criteria, we have to go back to the that's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. We have to go back to the side-on view, because here they want to know if the non-support leg is bent to around 90 degrees or more so that the foot comes up close to the butt. Right? And the reason for that criteria is that it indicates force production off the floor. Because if you've pushed really, really hard off the floor, your foot is going to flick up close to your heel, close to your bum, rather, right? And that's a no. Anybody think that's a yes? Okay. So then that gives you an idea. So my scoring, he would come out with a 0 for running on the TGMD, but he would be stage 2 on my MSU chart. Okay? Now if he scores 0 on running, I can then look at the normative tables for his age, probably about 3.5, maybe 4, and I can look at the normative tables and see if a 0, what percentile rank that would give him for his age for running. Okay? Okay, then the next one, let's compare. Where's my little sticky? I want to look at someone older. Okay, so this time I'm going to play the film and I want you to tell me what stage on your MSU chart this young lady is in. Okay? Oh, poop.
Just about to look preview her. She's stage 4.
I'll keep playing it. Let's have some more people chime in. We do you think? Come on, gang.
I would say state 4.
A 4? Yeah, I agree. I think she would be a 4 on the MSU chart, okay? So now let's use our TGMD and see what she would score for that run, right? So, arms move in opposition to legs. Yes, no.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. So she'd get a 1 for the criteria number 1. Brief period where both feet are off the floor. Just, I would say.
I think it is.
Yeah. It's not a very good flight phase. Right? She should be in the air for longer than that. So maybe she's just had a growth spurt and her leg muscles have not caught up yet, or she just doesn't do a lot of running around and jumping. Right? So I would want to work some on her leg strength so that we got more flight phase there. Okay, narrow foot placement. So let's look at the front version. It's got to be a more efficient way of getting to the next. I have to play with this a bit more. There we go. So, narrow foot placement and either heel, toe, or toe contact. So the fun thing about a front view is it's easy to see the heel contact because you see the sole of her shoe, right? So she's definitely, again, it's not very exaggerated. So my guess would be she doesn't spend a lot of time running around the garden or the park, but there's definitely, on the slow-mo you can see the sole of her shoe, and her feet are under her hips. So I would give her a 1 for that one, right? Non-support leg, we have to go back to the side view. On real time, I would say no. On slow-mo, I think it's borderline. Does it get to 90 degrees? Probably.
It kind of looks like it's slow-mo.
Yeah. Is her heel anywhere near her butt? No. So again, that's an indication that she's not applying very much force. So the flight time and the fact that her heel is so low at the back indicate some weakness in her legs, to me, right? In the slow-mo, it does look like she hits 90 degrees, I agree. So I would have to really think about, do I want to give her full points on her run, or do I want to indicate that there's some work that needs doing here on strength? Because the problem with giving full marks, of course, is then people think, oh, then I don't have to practice that anymore, right? So I'm not quite sure what I would do. It would help if I knew how old she was, I think. If she's 8, I would give her full marks. If she's 11, I think I would say no on that last criteria. I think. I don't work with that age group, so I don't have these problems. It's it's a bit easier with the preschoolers, I think. Okay, so let's maybe do, what time have we got? Okay, let's do a throwing. So throwing is the throwing videos are in chapter 6, so we have to go back here, open up chapter 6. And the first one I'm going to show you, we're just going to do on the MSU chart. We're not going to look at TGMD. So we're just going to quickly do MSU, and then we'll do another one and look at MSU and TGMD. Okay? So the first one I want is this one. So tell me what you think on this. This is tricky. Okay, any guesses?
I would say 1.
A 1? Okay. Because?
I think he's flat-footed.
He is flat-footed. There's no feet movement at all, right?
No.
So, feet not moving would put him in 1 or 2. 1 because he's got this high wind-up, this vertical wind-up, right? Okay.
Correct.
So here's what's interesting to me about this piece of film. Okay? This child is too old to be a boy throwing in stage 1. Right? Now, his ethnicity may be playing a role here because his parents may be from Asia. If they're first generation, they may not spend a lot of time outside playing, right? So now I'm trying to use my constraints triangle, right, to explain what I'm seeing, because this does not make sense to me. Okay? So it could be his home environment. It could be, now here's what's interesting, right? His feet do not move at all, but watch his arms carefully and look at the arm action on stage 3. Right? So I think I see follow through. Anybody else? So that's really curious. How can he have the upper body that's doing at least stage 3, right? Because stage 4 has a similar characteristic for the arm action. And his feet aren't moving at all. His feet just are not engaged. Right? Very curious. So something else I wonder is, what was the instruction that was given to him just before he threw the ball?
Probably, throw the ball from where you are.
Yeah.
And
Or stand still, now throw the ball. And he literally stood still and threw the ball. Because that's a very odd combination of behavior. To have an upper body action that's relatively competent and the feet are just not engaged in any shape or form. Right? So this is why it's really important that you spend time during the semester getting on the website and looking at film, right? Because you've got to look and think, what am I seeing? Why am I seeing this? Now, if I know what I'm seeing and a possible reason why I'm seeing it, what am I going to do to try to move this individual up to the next level? Right? And it takes practice. You have to practice. That's why the authors of this book provide so many film clips for you to look at. Right? Okay, we've got a few minutes. What was my next one? Number 11. Okay. Another tongue. Makes me very nervous when I see tongues sticking out. I just see them getting bitten and blood everywhere. Okay, so MSU first. Someone give me a stage for her.
So 3 is a high windup.
Okay. Look at her foot action. Which foot is in front when she releases the ball?
I would say 3.
Aha.
invert.
So it can't be stage 3 because she's stepping in opposition. Now, because she's running in, it could be luck that she happens to be in opposition, but it looks quite organised, Is there any rotation whatsoever? Shoulders and hips as she releases the ball. No, she's absolutely square on to the target. Right? So that would put her as a clear stage 4. She is stepping in opposition. It's a shame that they let her run with her hand up, so we didn't see what was happening with the, clearer picture of what was happening with the arm action. But she's go on.
Last step doesn't count.
No, because it's after she threw the ball. Right? You've got, what's important is what happens as she releases the ball. The last step is happening just because she ran in, and you can't just stop like that. Does that make sense? There, right? So if she had been standing still and thrown the ball, I expect she would step in opposition and throw the ball. But until you see it, it's difficult to say. As I say, it could be just luck that she happened to have the opposite leg forwards. But it looks a bit organised. So I suspect she's a 4. But there's no hip rotation, there's no shoulder rotation, everything is absolutely square on to the direction that the ball is going in. Okay? Any other questions on that? MSU? Let's just quickly look at TGMD. So we want it's on the back page here, overhand throw. All right. So it's going to be tricky. We can't really do criteria 1 because of the way they shot this film. Right? Because criteria 1, the wind-up is initiated with a downward movement of the hand and arm, but the film starts with her hand already up behind her head. So given the film, I would give her a no. I think it would probably be a no, because I don't think you would wind up and then run and throw the ball. That seems very odd. So I suspect she just picked the ball up and ran. So I'm going to give her a no on criteria 1. Okay, so criteria 2. Rotates hip and shoulder to a point where the non-throwing side faces the wall. What do you think, gang? Yes or no?
No.
No. I agree. There's no rotation of her hips or her shoulders, and she's still straight on. She hasn't turned to the wall at all. Okay, number 3, steps with the foot opposite the throwing hand towards the wall. So I would say yes, the problem is this bit of film isn't well shot for the TGMD. Because if you look at the directions in column 3, it says attach a piece of tape on the floor, have the child stand behind the tape, and tell them to throw hard at the wall. So she shouldn't have been running in to release the ball anyway if we were really doing the TGMD. All right, that would be a void trial. If I was scoring that for a TGMD as a piece of research data, right, it would just be void. And then the last one, number 4, throwing hand follows through after the ball release across the body toward the hip of the non-throwing side. It kind of starts and then it comes back again. Anybody going to be nice and give her a yes on that? No? I think that would be an occasion when I would go no, because that's something that needs working on, because the more she follows through, the more we start to see shoulder rotation. So if I say no, she doesn't follow through, and we work on that, it would help the whole skill. Okay, questions? It's time to finish. We do have office hours this afternoon, so if you think of something you'd like to ask me about that, please do. Please use your film sets to practice this, okay? And have a lovely